I booked the motel online 3 days before I left. It had no reviews, no photos, and the website looked like it hadn't been updated in over a decade. But it was $12 a night, and I didn't have much left after covering the gas. The place was listed as Sunset Grove Motor Inn, 30 minutes outside of town, near a stretch of highway surrounded by dry farmland and scattered trees. I figured I'd sleep there, wake up early, and make it to the next city without losing time or money. The sun was low when I pulled into the gravel lot. The office stood at the front, an old single-story structure with a faded sign, letters peeling. No cars, no movement, no music from nearby rooms, just stillness and the crackle of gravel under my tires. I parked directly in front of the office and stepped out. The glass door was unlocked. The inside smelled of dust and something, chemical, like cleaning supplies left open too long. There was no one behind the reception counter. The shelves behind it were empty, except for a stack of motel keys hanging from labeled hooks. A napkin lay folded in the center of the counter. Room 12. Door unlocked. Please let yourself in. That was it. No signature, no instructions, no welcome note. Just a few words in thick blue ink. I stood still for a moment, glancing around the empty lobby. A single security camera was mounted in the corner, but its red light wasn't on. I pressed the bell on the counter once. The metallic ring hung in the air longer than it should have. I waited another minute, then took the napkin with me. The motel formed a long row behind the office, 12 rooms in a straight line, all doors facing the same cracked parking lot. The lot itself looked freshly swept, but the concrete was old, split in multiple places. The walls were a uniform beige, paint worn thin near the bottoms from age or neglect. Room 12 was at the far end. The door was shut. Its brass number was partially scratched out, as if someone had tried to remove it with a key or a coin. I tried the handle. It opened. The room looked clean, but empty in a way that felt recent, like someone had removed just enough to make it impersonal. One bed, made tightly, a desk with no chair, a small CRT television with a remote still wrapped in plastic. The bathroom light worked, but the fan didn't. There was no soap, no towels, just a bar of wrapped MOTEL brand shampoo sitting on the back of the toilet. I stood in the doorway for a long minute before stepping in. I closed the door behind me and locked it. I unpacked nothing. The room had no closet. I placed my bag on the floor and sat on the edge of the bed. The room made no sound, no humming fridge, no ticking clock, no distant TV from another unit. I turned on the television. Static, every channel. I turned it off. I stepped outside to get a drink from the vending machine near the office. It was lit, stocked, but didn't respond when I inserted coins. The card reader was taped over with black electrical tape. A line of ants moved in and out from under the machine. I walked around the side of the office, looking for a back door. There was nothing but a locked metal gate leading to a fenced-off yard with a broken-down pickup truck and stacks of plywood leaning against a wall. No lights on inside, no movement behind the blinds. I tried knocking once, no answer. The sun dipped below the horizon. The parking lot, still empty, began to lose detail. The bulbs over each motel door flickered to life. Only room 12 stayed dark. I tried flipping the switch inside. Nothing. The power to the outlet next to the bed still worked. So I plugged in my phone and let it charge. The napkin was still in my pocket. I read it again. Same instructions. The handwriting looked shakier now that I was looking closer. The letters weren't rushed, just inconsistent, as if written by someone not used to writing much anymore. I sat back on the bed and checked my phone. No signal. I opened my browser. No network. I'd passed a cell tower 10 minutes before arriving, so I should have had something. I stood up and opened the curtain just slightly. No new cars, no light inside any of the rooms. Only room 8 had its curtains open, but it was pitch black inside. No shapes, no outlines. I let the curtain fall and sat back down. A soft sound came from the wall behind the headboard. It wasn't knocking. It was a single bump, like something heavy shifting slightly. I sat still, no follow-up. Just that single dull impact. I waited, listening hard for any kind of rhythm or repetition. Nothing. I pulled my phone from the charger. Still no bars. I put my shoes back on. I stepped outside and walked to room 11. The curtains were drawn. I knocked once, then again, louder. No reply. I moved down the line. Rooms 10, 9, 8. Same routine. No movement, no light, no sound of anyone inside. I stood in front of room 6, about halfway down. A small red smear ran from the door frame to the wall. Not fresh. Dried completely. No trail, just a single sweep across the surface as if someone had leaned against it. I pressed my ear to the door. Silence. I returned to my room. The lock turned cleanly. I shut the door behind me and clicked the deadbolt into place. It felt looser than before, as if it wasn't catching quite right. I sat on the bed and didn't move for several minutes. I opened the drawer next to the bed. Nothing. The bottom had been reinforced with fresh wood, lighter in color than the rest of the cabinet. I tapped it once. Hollow. I didn't try to open it. I lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. It had water damage in the corner nearest the bathroom, the kind that leaves pale brown rings. A single fly crawled along the edge of the light fixture, but didn't make a sound. At 1:17 a.m., a car engine started somewhere nearby. I sat up and moved to the curtain. From the tiny gap, I saw headlights sweep across the parking lot. A black SUV pulled in, reversed slightly, then backed into the space in front of room 4. The engine stopped, but no one got out. No door opened. The lights stayed on for another 3 minutes, then shut off all at once. I watched the windshield. There was movement inside, but not enough to make out who or what it was. Just a figure leaning forward slightly, then going still. I backed away from the window. At 2:03 a.m., the power to the room cut out completely. No light from the bathroom, no charging indicator on my phone. I checked, battery at 28%. I flicked the light switch twice. Nothing. I sat still for a long time. Then, footsteps, slow, consistent, walking past the front of the row. They stopped briefly in front of my door. No knock, no attempt to open it. Just stillness for 5 seconds. Then the sound of shoes on gravel continued, moving past, then out of range. I stayed seated on the edge of the bed until light started leaking in from around the curtain. I didn't sleep. At 6:45 a.m., I walked out and found the lot still empty. The SUV was gone. The vending machine was smashed. Coins scattered across the gravel. I drove away without going back to the office. There was no charge on my bank statement for the booking. No record of payment or reservation. The motel's website returned a 404 error. Its listed phone number was disconnected. When I passed through that same highway weeks later, the lot was blocked off. The building had been stripped, windows covered with plywood, sign gone. The gate around the back was open. Someone had spray-painted large black numbers across the side wall. 12. Nothing else remained. checked into the motel a little before 5. It sat off Route 41, just outside a town I didn't know. One night, quick rest, then back on the road. The office was attached to a row of 12 rooms. The lot had 5 cars. One guy stood beside a truck, drinking. A woman near room 4 was holding her phone but not talking. Inside, the clerk slid a paper form across the counter without speaking. Room 9, 1 bed, no pets. I paid cash and took the key. 4 doors from the end. The room looked standard. Old carpet, bolted down nightstand, zip-tied remote. I dropped my bag, locked the door, plugged in my phone, and texted my sister that I'd stop driving for the night. The bathroom was clean, mirrors scratched, no towels. The only soap was a sealed motel bar. I started the water and waited until it was hot. My clothes stayed folded on the toilet tank. I kept the door closed. 5 minutes into the shower, I heard it. A zipper. From the room, 1 quick pull. Then another, slower. I shut off the water, waited. No further noise. The bathroom door hadn't moved. I stepped out, still wet. The bag was where I'd left it, closed, the bed untouched, the door locked, chain in place. I opened the bag, clothes still folded, checked all compartments, nothing missing. I got dressed and moved quietly outside. The rooms nearby were dark. Room 4's door was slightly open. I walked past it. The office was empty. The food container from earlier was gone, replaced by a half-full mug. I rang the bell. Nothing. Behind the counter, a hallway led to a locked door marked private. I knocked. No response. I left the key on the counter and stepped out. My car was parked under a broken light. A slip of receipt paper was tucked under the wiper. Room 9, occupied, 6:42 p.m. No logo, no timestamp, still warm. I checked the window, still no one inside. Back in the car, I drove toward town. A diner near the highway had lights on and a few cars in the lot. I pulled in and sat for a while with the engine running. I searched the motel's name on my phone, no reviews. An article from 6 years ago described a small fire, electrical fault, 8 rooms damaged, no one seriously hurt. I drank cold coffee and watched the road. An officer came into the diner around 8 o'clock. He greeted the man at the counter by name. They talked about a call from the motel. A guest refused to pay, left without checking out. The officer asked if anyone had seen a woman in a gray hatchback. The clerk said no. I waited until they were gone, then left. I drove another 20 miles to a chain hotel. The clerk circled the room on a map and handed me a keycard. The lot was full. Teenagers, families, drivers unloading luggage. The room was smaller, but felt lived in. Scuff marks, chipped paint, no new smells. I unpacked nothing. This time I showered with the door open and kept the bag zipped. I didn't plan to stay the night. It was a 6-hour drive to the job site, and I'd left too late to make it all the way. I stopped at a gas station around midnight, bought a stale sandwich, and kept going until the fatigue caught up. Just past the county line, I found a small motel off the highway. 1 level, L-shaped, white stucco walls, stained with streaks of rust and rain. There were 2 empty parking lots. Lot A was lit and connected to the office. Lot B was gravel, unpaved, tucked behind a row of bushes near the back end of the building. I pulled into Lot B and parked under a leaning light pole. The bulb above me buzzed but stayed on. I adjusted my seat and cracked a window. The air outside was cold enough to keep me from sleeping too long. I left my boots on. Across from me, room 27 had its curtain open. A blue TV screen pulsed against the back wall. Nobody moved inside. I kept my eyes on it for longer than I meant to. I checked the time, 1:42 a.m. The buzzing above me cut out for half a second, then came back. I pulled my jacket over my chest and rested my head back. I was asleep for less than 2 hours. There was a knock on the passenger window. Firm, 3 times, not rushed. I sat up and rubbed my face, trying to clear the disorientation. A man in a uniform stood outside the window, hand still raised, expression neutral. Motel name stitched above the pocket. I rolled the window down halfway. He gestured toward the building, then pointed to himself. Something about his expression made it hard to place his age. Could have been anywhere between 35 and 60. He pulled a room key from his jacket pocket. The number 16 was written on a plastic tag. He held it out. I didn't ask questions. I took the key. I followed him across the lot around the back of the main building. No lights on at reception, no other guests visible. Room 16 was near the center of the row, just beside an old vending machine wrapped in caution tape. The man nodded once, then walked toward the office. I didn't see which direction he turned. Inside, the room smelled faintly like bleach. The window didn't have a lock, but the deadbolt on the door worked. There was no remote, no phone, and no clock. Just a low bed, a narrow desk, and a ceiling vent that rattled every few minutes. I laid down without removing my jacket. At 4:06 a.m., I got up and went back outside. My car was gone. I scanned the gravel lot. Every space was empty. I walked the length of the row, past room 27, still no movement. The blue TV screen had gone dark. Room 28's curtains were closed tight. A faint humming came from behind the wall, but stopped when I approached. I turned the corner toward Lot A. 4 cars were parked near the office. None of them were mine. I stepped up to the glass door. The inside lights were off. The front desk was empty. A sign was taped to the glass with a local number written in marker. I dialed it. No answer. I looked through the window again. There were no keys behind the counter. No papers. The shelf was empty. A waste bin near the door had been overturned. A broken pen lay beside it. I walked around to the back of the building and scanned the access road behind the property. A fence ran along the edge of the lot, half collapsed in one section. A muddy trail led out through the trees, deep tire tracks curving behind the hill. I followed them until the gravel turned to soft dirt, then stopped. I returned to room 16 and sat on the edge of the bed. The key was still in my pocket. I took it and turned it over in my hand. No logo, no motel name. Just the number. I opened the desk drawer. Nothing inside. The bottom was warped from moisture. A faint ring where a cup had once been. I sat still and listened for movement in the rooms nearby. Nothing. At 5:14 a.m., I walked back toward Lot A. The lobby lights were on. A different man stood behind the counter, sorting receipts into a drawer. He looked up briefly, then down again. A woman stood near the vending machine, speaking on her phone. 2 more cars were pulling into the lot. I stepped inside and asked about the night manager. The man behind the counter looked confused. Said he'd been working since midnight. I described the one who knocked on my window. He shook his head. Said there was no one else on staff. No room 16 either. The rooms only went up to 30, and all were booked last night. No vacancy. He pointed to the registry. No entries under my name, no gaps in the log. Said maybe I had the wrong place. I stepped outside without answering. Back in Lot B, the light pole was still buzzing. Room 16's door was closed. The window curtain hadn't moved. I walked up and tried the handle. It opened. The room was empty. Furniture gone. Floor dusty. An old ceiling fan blade hung halfway down, cracked at the base. No sign of anyone having stayed there in months. I backed out and closed the door. A car horn sounded from the front. A tow truck was pulling into Lot A. Behind it, my car. The driver jumped down and asked if I was the owner. Said he'd found the vehicle idling 2 blocks away. No lights on. No damage, no sign of a break-in. Nothing inside had been touched. The keys were still in the ignition. I paid the fee and drove out of the lot. 20 minutes later, I pulled over at a gas station. I didn't buy anything. I just sat in the driver's seat, staring at the lot across the road. There was a motel there, too. Neon sign flickering. 2 cars parked, 1 door open. I stayed in the car until the sun came up. Then I kept driving.